Okay. Well, good night, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting for the 25th of April. And I'll call the meeting to order. And the first item we have up is the adoption of the agenda, of course. I have a recommendation that the agenda for the April 25th, 2022 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll go around the table and disclosure of any pecuniary interest on anything on tonight's agenda. I have nothing to disclose. Councillor Yake?
Nope.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none, Andy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hearn?
No.
And Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to awards declaration and recognition, and I have the distinct pleasure tonight of declaring Volunteer Week. So I have a declaration I'll just read. Whereas 24 million Canadians give their time through formal or informal types of volunteering, contributing close to 5 billion volunteer hours per year. And whereas volunteers in the Township of Wellington North mentor our children, support those feeling isolated, beautify our green spaces, and fundraise for our charitable organizations. And whereas volunteers in the Township of Wellington North have stepped up during the COVID-19 pandemic to support families, friends, neighbors, and strangers, people standing up to systemic racism, and people sharing insights on how to create a more just and equitable society. And whereas the Township of Wellington North's volunteers are individuals, families, workers, retirees, community members of all ages and backgrounds. And whereas the collective result of the work done by our community's volunteers is that the Township of North is a more desirable place to live. And whereas organizations in the Township of Wellington North that rely on volunteers include such fundamental organizations as the Louise Marshall Hospital, Cancer Patient Services, Mount Forest Community Pantry, Arthur Food Bank, Lions Blacksmith Shop, Mount Forest Fireworks Festival, our agricultural societies, historical societies, horticultural societies, Lions clubs, Optimist clubs, Get in Touch for Hutch, and many more that we too numerous to name. Now, therefore, I, Andy Lennox, Mayor of the Township of Wellington North, do hereby proclaim April 24th to 30th, 2022 as National Volunteer Week, and urge my fellow citizens to recognize the crucial role played by volunteers in our community. So that's the declaration for volunteers for this week. It's wonderful to celebrate volunteers because they are a very important part of our community. And just when we're on that topic, we have the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner coming up on May 5th. And is registration still open on that, Karen, or is that closed at this point?
The registration to Eventbrite is closed, but if anyone wants to come and haven't registered, they just need to call the municipality or email us and we'll get them on the list.
Okay. So if there's anyone you know that would like to come and hasn't registered, let's get their name on the list as quickly as possible. We certainly want a chance to celebrate with everyone we possibly can, as volunteering is so important. Okay. Next up, we have the County Council update, and it looks like I'm on the hook for it this time. So I've got a kind of a menu list of items I want to briefly talk about from County Council. First one I want to talk about is one that I've been very much involved in, and that's the Rhodes Master Plan. We've talked about it briefly before, but one of the things that I think is really important to us is the master planning process that the county has gone through is something that we could look to as a model to help us navigate what our roads and transportation needs are going to be for the coming years, as we anticipate what growth will do to our community as well. Things like incorporating the active transportation elements of our transportation, and also creating data-driven ways to employ safety safety features and things on our roads. You're probably aware that last month the County Council endorsed a number of community safety zones as one of those road safety features that we're starting to employ. And there will be one on Sligo Road in front of the high school. So this, I think it provides a good model. We can look at what our road needs are from a growth perspective, as well as look at what we can do to set the stage for what safety features we need to incorporate into our roads to keep our roads safe for all users, not just vehicles, but of course cyclists, pedestrians, those members of our community that use horse and buggy, and those types of things all need to come into that. And I think that's a wonderful tool that we should seriously look at doing in the near future to plan the needs of our roads for the coming years. Next item I want to talk about briefly is Social Services Department at the county is looking to put together some support services. So if we happen to have those fleeing the conflict in Ukraine come to our community, that they will have the pieces in place to make sure that they have housing and the necessary things they need to adapt to living in our communities. So if you hear of somebody coming, please pass the word along, and we'll make sure that they get the support to help them adapt as they are fleeing the conflict. Just a quick update, if anybody here is an aspiring writer, of course, the county is hosting a writers festival currently. So a chance to see what kind of writers we have in our community, and I think that's wonderful. Often writing is one of those things that is done in the shadows or behind closed doors, and it's great to celebrate all the talent that we have in our communities. Not directly related to county services, although the county is in the business of looking after long-term care through the Wellington Terrace. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that the province has announced a major expansion for Crescent Care in Arthur being supported. It's fantastic news for our community. There'll be a significant growth in beds and upgrade of existing places in the Crescent Care in Arthur that the province has agreed to invest in. There's certainly a need in our community and will be need going forward, and it's great that that's been recognized. I want to talk briefly about planning. Of course, we've heard from time to time about the municipal comprehensive review of the official plan that the county is going through, and coming up right away soon is the land needs requirements. So it's looking at what needs will be required to carry us through till 2051. In Wellington North, of course, we're in a fairly enviable position in that we have significant lands designated as future development that we can employ. But stay tuned. There's, I think, more discussion we need to have about some of that as well in terms of how we envision our community developing in the future. Just a quick economic development update. Just an update on the RideWell program. This is something that continues to be a great service supported by the province and delivered by the county. They're looking to move back toward ride sharing, of course, because of COVID-19, you couldn't share rides, and they're not quite there yet, but they're hoping that they can get back to ride sharing, and that helps lower cost even further for people to get around, especially if you've got 2 or 3 people going to the same place. Makes a great combination. Ridership is still growing, but I think there's still not a lot of, it's not widely known that that service exists out there and how flexible it is. So if you get a chance to spread the word, please do so. And finally, I just wanted to highlight in the solid waste area, of course, the household hazardous waste depot is in Riverston for the month of April. So for the rest of the week, it will be here. And then won't be back until December. So if you had some of that household hazardous waste, such as paint cans and batteries and those types of things, if you want to get rid of them, take them to Riverston before the end of the week, and they'll look after you on that. And just a reminder as well that The next yard, we had our first yard waste pickup of the year last week in Wellington North, and the next one will be the week of May 16th. So just again, if you get a chance to spread the word, let people know what's coming. That's the next time. So the plans are to do it monthly and then twice a month as we approach leaf season in the fall. And I don't have anything else, but certainly I'm open to any questions that the council may have. Dan, go ahead.
When you talk, Andy, briefly about the Ukrainian situation, we had checked out the possibility about hosting a family when they got here and that type of thing, and it's quite they haven't quite got everything nailed down to be able to do that. So and most of the time it goes through nonprofit organizations or the churches. But anyway, it'll, if people are considering it, it's certainly worthwhile getting the information to see where it might all end up. I mean, we have a large house. We have a house big enough to support, a family if at all possible. So we're looking into the idea.
And social services has a report this month about how they can help with that as well. So, all the resources we can bring to bear to help families like that, I think certainly is absolutely the right thing to do.
Sure.
Okay. Any other, Lisa?
My question is nowhere near as important as Councillor Yake's. I received a bunch of really nice trees at the end of my driveway today from the Green Legacy. And as they were tossed out and delivered, I kind of wondered, and maybe there is a place on the website or something, is there somewhere that I can contribute to the program? Do you know?
So in the past, when we've held the Green Legacy Days, the contributions were not directly to the Green Legacy program, but to the charities of our choice. In the case of what we've done in the past was for the horticultural societies in both Arthur and Mount Forest, and I'm certainly sure that they would accept your contribution on behalf of the Green Legacy program to help them defray the costs that they have.
I'm sure they would. Thanks, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, our next item is to recess to move into a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment. So I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the April 25th, 2022 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act. This is for Kyle Woods, a zoning amendment. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're recessed from our council meeting. We'll just flip over to the public meeting agenda. So we have the public meeting, and I'll call the public meeting to order. And I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest in regard to anything on this agenda. I don't have anything to declare. Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none, Andy.
Okay, Councillor Yake?
No.
Okay, thank you. So our owner applicant in this case is Kyle Woods at 9638 Concession 8. The lands subject to the proposed amendment are described as Concession 9, part of Lot 1, Registered Plan 60R2423, Part 1, and known municipally as 9638 Concession 8, and the northeast corner of part of Lot 1, Concession 9, known municipally as 9630 Concession 8, geographic Township of Arthur. The property subject to the proposed amendment is approximately 0.89 hectares in size, and the location, of course, is shown on the map in your package. Purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands to permit a commercial licensed automotive body repair shop, automotive sales and service establishment, and salvage yard for commercial towing, salvage, vehicle storage, and light and heavy vehicle repairs on the property. Property is currently zoned agricultural with a site-specific provision, A25, which permits an agricultural equipment rental business. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. How is notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on April 1st, 2022.
Great, thank you. Jessica, I see you've joined our meeting. Can you give us an update on this application, please?
Yes, again, thank you. So the application before us today is to rezone the subject lands in order to permit a commercial licensed automotive body repair shop, an automotive sales and service establishment, and a salvage yard on the subject lands. The current zoning on the property does have an agricultural site specific, which permits the agricultural equipment rental business, which does not allow for the automotive body repair uses that are being requested for tonight. This rezoning, in order to have the site specific, was applied for back in 2006 in order to have the agricultural business on the property. And at the time, it was considered agricultural related use under the provincial policies as well as the county official plan. So my report tonight is just an information report that provides, it breaks down the PPS and the county official plan and how we look at what agricultural related uses are and farm related uses are. And the agricultural related uses specifically doesn't permit automotive dealerships, towing companies, machine shops, or wrecking yards as uses that are would be considered in the prime agricultural land. So again, this application is before us to allow for those uses, and tonight is just an opportunity for council and staff as well as the applicant to provide information on what the proposed use would include, and just if anybody has any questions, and we would be bringing a bylaw at a later council meeting for this application for us.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. Anyone wishing notice of the decision? So the bylaw will be considered at a future council meeting. It's not being considered this evening. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that, I will open the floor for any questions or comments. I see Kyle has joined us. Did you have anything you wanted to comment on at this point, Kyle?
I have nothing as of right now. I am open to hearing and answering questions as they come in. The one thing I do want to stress upon is the zoning change that I'm looking for isn't necessarily for the body shop stuff. Like, I know that's the first thing that comes up. My main goal is for towing, vehicle storage, an enclosed impound, and to be able to build a new shop since the fire happened almost a year and a half ago. Yeah, I'm open to any questions. I can answer what I can, and hopefully everything goes smoothly.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Do we have anyone else registered to speak on this application, Karen?
We do not.
Okay, so then we'll open it up to members of council for questions or comments.
I don't have any, Andy. I think this is straightforward enough for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
anybody else?
I'm good. I'm good too.
Sherry?
Yeah, I just have a question with regards to the salvage portion of the proposal. And I think that most people, and probably along with myself, think of a salvage yard where there's multiple vehicles piled up. And I'm just wondering how we potentially get around having requests to have bylaw enforcement involved in things if it gets too far along, or what is the intent for the salvage yard, Kyle? Like, Is it just to have vehicles that have been towed, or can you just explain that portion of it a little bit better?
Yeah, for sure. The salvage I put on there, mostly for the fact, back in 2019, it was brought to my attention that in order to have end-of-life vehicles on your premises, you have to be registered with ESER, which is the environmental aspect of everything. And that's what I basically do, is mostly just end-of-life vehicles. So a lot of them are tow-ins or abandoned vehicles that were in an accident that didn't have insurance coverage. Sometimes people do call me up and say, hey, can you tow my scrap vehicle? So I am registered as ESER, which is the environmental aspect of the dealing with the fluids and all of that stuff. As far as the actual salvage yard goes, I'm not looking to have piles of scrap metal around stacks of cars. As it comes in, it goes out. I just want to be able to process those vehicles that are end of life to maximize my income, my profitability off of those vehicles, rather than shipping them out complete and not, you strip it down, you break it down, you get more money, right? So it's not a matter of being able to stockpile or store scrap here. I'm not looking for a wrecking yard. I'm not looking to sell parts, none of that stuff. In the proposed plan with the rebuild as well, I do have provisions in there for making a bigger enclosed compound. So it will be more vehicle storage in the compound that is out of sight from community eyes as well. And I will bring it up, like I've heard from the community as well. I do, people do talk, and I understand coming into town from the east right now, I understand that the property doesn't look the greatest. It is a bit of an eyesore. There's storage trailers, all of that kind of stuff has stuff in it from my shop from when the fire happened. Once we get this all done and are able to build the new shop I'm hoping is going to be closer to the north end of the property. It's going to be new, it's going to be nice, it's going to not be an eyesore. I can get rid of a lot of the additional storage trailers and stuff that I have here and just clean up the property nicely. And again, having it look the way it does is not my goal. I don't like it. I mean, I live right here too. It doesn't look great getting up in the morning and looking outside to that. But my hands have been tied since the fire, and there's so much stuff to store and parts and that kind of stuff for the towing business that it's not very feasible right now. So like I said, I do want to address that it's not going to be an eyesore. There is provisions in possibly to fence the property like to the gates that are at the laneways and stuff now, so that it's fenced off even more. If we need to, we will, but otherwise, like I said, in the compound is what I'm looking to do. There's going to be a 6 or 8 foot fence there. You're not going to be able to see through it. It's going to tidy up the property tenfold.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle.
Other questions, comments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just wanting to add a bit onto that, the salvage yard component. So technically, a salvage yard isn't permitted in any uses in the township zoning bylaw. So this would be a site specific to recognize that. We could go into more specific details, maybe a certain area or a certain size, or as Kyle mentioned, indoor storage, to help further mitigate the salvage yard component of the rezoning. And then it also is subject to site plan approval. So that could add for additional screening as well if council is in support of the salvage yard. We could also come back with 2 separate bylaws, one allowing for the automotive uses and the salvage yard, or one with just the automotive uses and not include the salvage yard component if that is a concern of council. And then there'd be the opportunity there to look at both of those at the following meeting.
So just to be clear, Jessica, would you recommend putting some of those provisions in the zoning bylaw amendment, or is it better dealt with through site plan? I think probably it makes a lot of sense to limit the size of the salvage area and make sure that screening is in place, whether that be fencing or whatever. But I'm just wondering what the best mechanism to accomplish that is.
So through you, I think that we would probably try and put a few provisions within the site-specific zoning just to narrow that down. And it kind of allows for situations similar to this, where we had an old rezoning on the property and then it goes over to a new owner. And then that use kind of, like right now, the site-specific zoning is very, not much detail, we'll say. So it just allows for an agricultural equipment repair business, where we'll try and provide a bit more detail of location through the zoning, and then the screening would be more through the site plan agreement.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I would just add too that I'm not a big proponent of allowing non-agricultural uses in an agricultural zone like this is, but this has been in use for other purposes for a number of years. So, and it's not really going to revert to agricultural production for sure. So I think maybe this is one of those occasions where stepping outside of the best policy may be the best solution here, especially if we can, with Kyle's help, get something that looks and feels a little better for residents as they approach Mount Forest. Is there anything further you need, Jessica, in terms of direction from council to move this to the next step?
No, not, that was just, we thought we would go forward with just a public meeting, just in case there was any concerns from the public or council tonight. But we'll be able to come up with some wording for a bylaw, and we'll have a recommendation report at hopefully the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. If there isn't any further comments, I think that brings us to adjournment for tonight's public meeting. So could I get I've got a recommendation here that the public meeting of April 25th, 2022 be adjourned at 7:27 p.m. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're adjourned from the public meeting. We'll flip back to our regular council meeting. And I have a recommendation to resume the regular meeting of council. And it reads that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the April 25th, 2022 regular meeting of council at 7:28 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Dan, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next up, we've got adoption of the minutes of the council and public meeting. So we have regular meeting of council and the public meeting from April 11th, and the recommendation is as follows: that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the public meeting held on April 11th, 2022 be adopted as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have business arising from the previous meeting of council. This is from the April 11th meeting regarding the deputation of the Markham Waterloo Mennonite Conference proposed Mennonite Meeting House and parochial elementary school. So I guess, do we have any further comments about, well, maybe I'll start us off. So we were kind of having some discussion about whether we were comfortable with leaving or with allowing the school and church to be put into the prime ag area outside of the urban boundary of Arthur. Well, we don't make the decision. Our recommendation would carry influence at the county when, if such an application were to occur. In the interim, I was approached by a property owner at the north end of Arthur, who's looking to churn some, and thus currently classified industrial land to residential. And they were having some discussion with the Mennonite group to possibly accommodate a church on their property. That's the property immediately to the north of the Catholic school. I know this is a matter that's, there's an application currently at the county to redesignate that land from industrial to residential because the owner would like to develop residential on that property. I know through our initial land needs study for the official plan update, there is a need for a small amount more of residential land other than what was already suggested and recommended, but not that whole property. So this might offer a possible solution if the Mennonite church group can work with the developer. It might make an excellent buffer, church and school, between the residential area and lighter industrial area as well. So I think it could be possibly a win-win situation if it can come to that. And certainly I would be very supportive, I think, of that approach. But certainly I'm open to other members of council and your thoughts and ideas about how we try to accommodate the worship and school needs of this part of our community. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in favor of maybe investigating another alternative rather than have it on the Con Road at the corner of line 2 in the Con Road, and taking prime ag out of production. As we just saw, we have to do a zoning bylaw amendment for Kyle Woods for him to do his job. So I don't think that's the best use of the land when it's prime ag. But yeah, if there's if the landowner that you're currently talking about has an appetite to maybe I guess continue talks with the Mennonite community about this, and if we can, I know we don't have the final say on this, it goes to the county, but if there's some sort of an agreement that can be worked out, I think I'd like to see that before I agreed to it, but it would be certainly something that I'd be interested in seeing for sure.
Okay. Lisa, I think I saw your hand up.
Fairly similar to what Councillor McCabe said. I do agree with this approach. I think it sounds, if it works out, could be a good solution to the issue. I'm not really in support of taking land out of prime agriculture if we don't have to. I don't want it to ever be the low-hanging fruit, even though it seems like we have a lot of it. We really don't. We're losing it very quickly. But I think that this could be a win-win situation, like you said.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Dan, go ahead.
I would just agree with what Steve and Lisa have said. I think if there's an alternative here, and it sounds like those discussions are underway, if the alternative works out, I think that's a good solution. So hopefully it'll work out.
Yeah, I would add too that we are going to have to play a role in that if this is going to work out, because I don't think the county is initially supportive of conversion of that land from industrial. So I think we're going to have to advocate for that as a part of this process. And so we need to be comfortable with advocating for that too, because it's not on the county's recommended list at this point, at least. I think we can make the argument that some residential area is appropriate because of the proximity of the school and the other residential area, but it is going to require us to take a stand on this and ask the county to give it serious consideration. Dan, go ahead.
So is it easier for us to advocate changing industrial land than prime agricultural land? Because I know that was the discussion last week. We didn't really want to, they wanted us to kind of, promote it and support it so they could move forward. So is it easier for us to advocate for changing industrial land?
So I'm not sure how to answer that question, Dan. I don't think one is easier than the other necessarily. I would say that the advocating for the changing of this property we've been discussing tonight is more complex because we need to find a replacement for that employment land that's currently designated there. My personal feeling is it probably should move out to along Wells Street where there's land designated currently as future development. To me, it makes sense to concentrate the industrial along the Wells Street corridor. But that land currently is designated future development and it isn't in the plans in the short term to designate it as anything else. So I think it would require us to advocate for both.
Okay.
I kind of am of the opinion that if I look beyond the 2051 horizon, if we leave the industrial where it is now, we're going to end up with a belt of industrial and potentially residential beyond the industrial within the Arthur urban boundary, which to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
Like there's another 160 acres of future development, well, more than that, of future development lands on the north end of Arthur that, you know, if we look at the mix of employment lands versus residential, some of that ultimately will have to be used for residential unless things change dramatically. So
right.
to have a belt of industrial land and then we're going to hop to another belt of residential land, to me doesn't sound like good planning.
No. Good point.
So I think in order for a deal to happen, the current owner of that property is going to want our support to convince the county that this is the right thing to do. And I'm also led to believe there may be another community group looking for a church location in Arthur as well. So this may not be the only one of these we have to deal with.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments at this point?
Not yet.
So I'm based on the comments, I'm taking that from this that there's an openness to discuss this option as a preferred option. So if that's the case, I will take it forward and start having discussions with my county counterparts to see whether we can find a resolution to this. If that's not the case, then I'd prefer to know that now.
I'm good with that, Andy.
Okay. Anything else to add to this for right now? So just a procedural question, Karen, when we've got this item as an outstanding item of business arising, do we just carry it forward from meeting to meeting until we get to a resolution? How do we handle that?
I don't know if you want to discuss it at every single meeting. You could direct staff, like I guess you could direct staff tonight to bring this matter back at the direction of the mayor. I mean, when there's more information to bring back, otherwise, yeah, it'll come back to every meeting. And I don't know that there's anything productive about that. And there may be a time, if you're going to be talking about identifiable individuals and property owners, where it's best to discuss it in closed session.
Okay. So
as you get more information about this, or any counselor gets more information, you could provide tonight, that staff be directed to bring this matter to a future agenda on the direction of the mayor.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's do that then. Okay. Thank you, Karen. With that, we'll move on to items for consideration. So let's pull out those items we want to have further discussion on tonight. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox, I'd like to excuse me, discuss 2A about the public meeting that we had the other day, excuse me, in Arthur.
Okay. Anything else, Steve?
Actually, no, that's it for me.
Okay. Anything else for anybody else? Sherry, go ahead.
4B.
4B, that's the award of the Donville Street project. Okay.
Yes.
Any others?
No, not for me. Thank you.
Okay,
The other one
thank you.
was already pulled.
Thanks, Sherry. Lisa or Dan, do you have any others you'd like to pull out?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm going to request that 4A be pulled out and 6C. Okay. So I'll just recap. So we've got pulled out for further discussion 2A, 4A, 4B, and 6C. If there's no others, then we'll deal with all the rest. Recommendation here that all items listed under items for consideration on the April 25th, 2022 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to 2A. And they'll read the recommendation here. This is in regard to the Housing and Development Public Information Meeting. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report EDO 2022-16 being an overview of the April 13th Growth, Housing and Development Public Information Meeting. And further, the council supports the staff recommendation to engage the community in a housing survey to help guide the township's growth and housing efforts moving forward. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lennox, and through you, I think based on the success of the excuse me, the Arthur meeting there a couple Wednesdays ago, and in the excuse me, the background in the conclusion from this report, I would like to see if we can nail down a meeting day that we can do this in Mount Forest as well. I think it was really well attended. There was a lot of good information presented to the public, and there was a crowd of about 70 people, I think it said, and I think that's how many were there. And if we can do either, I think it was May 19th or the 26th, I think that would be a great idea for us.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to Councillor McCabe's comments is if we're going to do a meeting in Mount Forest, could we have the surveys ready and available and online for those folks that have already attended a meeting and for the folks that are going to come to the Mount Forest meeting? I just sometimes think when we, not that it's not a good idea to have a meeting in the two centers, but if we have the meeting in Mount Forest and then we do the surveys, it really just extends the project that much longer. So I'm just wondering if we could do the survey in conjunction with. And I see Dale's popped up.
Welcome, Dale. You're on the hot seat.
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. Through you, yeah, Councillor Burke, we can absolutely do that with the survey. And we can absolutely do another public meeting if that's what council would like to do. I put May 19th or May 26th. We don't want to let CAO Mike out of town before we do this next discussion. So that would be my preference in terms of nights. And yes, we can maybe even get the survey launched a little bit before that date. And then also have copies there for the discussion that evening as well. But I would see the format being pretty similar to what we did in Arthur, unless council felt there were some changes they'd like to see made.
Okay, thanks, Dale. Other questions, comments? Sherry, go ahead.
No, I think the format worked well. In talking to a couple of people that were there that evening and also afterwards, I think the format worked well. So I don't think there's anything to change that way.
Other questions, comments? Certainly, I'd be very supportive of another meeting location. I was going to talk about it a little bit later as well. I had the opportunity to talk with the Mount Forest Lions Club, and this is an issue that I brought up and talked about, and there was significant interest and some really good questions that came out of that. So I think absolutely us talking to the public about what's coming down and what considerations we're already thinking about, and letting us be open to what else we need to think about as we do it, I think is absolutely the best thing we can do. And if we can do another meeting, I'm fully supportive of that. I very much like the format, and certainly I don't want to let Mike off the hook too easy. He did a very good job of presenting the information and talking about some of the things that we've been working on, and I think it's really good that we get the information out to the public. So anybody else have questions, comments? So I'm taking from the conversation, Dale, that we'd like to proceed with another session. If those dates can work, that'd be great. But we'll leave that in your hands to try to organize that, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine if that works for council, and we'll see what rooms are available to be booked and what nights, and then we'll get out to council as soon as we can with the firm date.
Karen?
So the minutes will reflect that council directed staff to arrange a meeting in May in Mount Forest. It'll be worded better than that, but so is that
Okay,
correct?
that's great.
Sounds good.
Yep, I think so. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Unless there's something further, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 4A. This is the office report in regard to the award of the sidewalk program. And the recommendation is as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report Ops 2022-16 being a report on the award of the Township's 2022 sidewalk program, and further the Council award the request for tender 5528-22 to C&G Concrete at a cost of $108,625.90 plus applicable taxes. And further, the council authorized the Director of Operations or their designate to sign any necessary agreements to execute this project. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, and I'll open the floor for discussion. Maybe I'll start off because I'm the one that asked to pull this out. It's great to see this project come in. It looks like we're a little under the budget, which is great news. But I just wanted to, again, I kind of did it with the county council report, but I'd like to put my plug in again for I think, having a good sidewalk program really can fall out of a good master planning process. We have master plans for our water and wastewater. I think we need to have it for our transportation, which includes not only roads, but sidewalks and other amenities that are involved in transportation. That includes things like walking trails and those types of things. And I think if we're going to do our community justice, we need to start preparing for that as the community grows. I know when I was presenting some of the information to the Lions Club last week, started talking about the numbers of people that are planned to come here by 2051, and I got a few shocked looks. So I think we've got some work ahead of us to prepare people for the population that's slated to come our way. And I think, having a good master plan and process is absolutely the way that we prepare for that and make sure that we're taking all the community's needs into account. Other questions, comments?
And
Steve?
yeah, I would just echo what you started off with, Mayor Lennox, is the price is a little bit under budget, which is surprising these days, which is nice to see, and nice to see this project going ahead as well.
I would just add that some of the bridge projects we're dealing with at the county have also been coming in under budget. So I guess I'm assuming that maybe concrete isn't going up as much as asphalt. At least that's I'm hoping that's the right interpretation. But certainly it's nice to see something come in under budget, because we've had a couple of others that weren't so favorable.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. And we'll move on to 4B. This is in regard to the Donville Street reconstruction. And the recommendation reads as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report Ops 2022-17, being a report on the award of the Donville Street reconstruction project. And further, the council award the request for tender 5981-22 to Drexler Construction Limited at a cost of $1,984,970 plus applicable taxes. And further, the council directs staff to increase the budget associated with this project by $75,000. And further, the council approve utilization of a combination of Waterwork Reserve Fund and Sanitary Sewer Reserve Fund, respectively, for any water sewer related overage and unallocated 2022 Ontario Community Infrastructure Funds for any roads related overage to fund the gap, between the approved budget and actual costs. And further, the council authorized the mayor and clerk to sign any necessary agreements to execute this project. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa, and we'll open the floor for discussion. Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so much to your comment, Mayor Lennox, about the cement and some of the projects coming under budget, this one is extremely over budget. And I'm just wondering if that is related to more specifically to the asphalt costs, as we know that we've had to cut some of the programs for our resurfacing projects this year. So I'm just kind of looking for an explanation as to what is reflecting the overage that we need to bridge the gap on through these other funds.
Okay, Matt, can you help us with that?
Yep, thank you, Mayor Lennox, and through you to Councillor Burke. Yeah, $75,000. It's a $2.3 million project, so it's a little under 5%. It's less than we saw for our asphalt program, and it's less than we saw for Queen Street East. It's kind of confusing that it's less than Queen Street East, to be fair. And the $75,000 overage, I would say staff is still talking to local developers at what their contribution is going to be. Worst case scenario is $75,000 as a project overage, because I think some developers need to throw some money in the pot. and staff are still working through exactly what that looks like.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt.
And as I understand it, this project is critical for, so some of those developments can move ahead as well.
Mhm.
Other questions, comments? Dan, go ahead.
Maybe I'm just looking at this wrong, but under financial considerations, it's got the bidder, it's got the two bidders. And then underneath, it's got the recommended bidder. It's C&G concrete bid. Is that right?
Matt, I don't have that right in front of me. Can you help us with that?
Yeah, I just need a look as well. C&G Concrete was the last report, but maybe there
But
was a mistake.
it says the same, it's got C&G concrete bid, the exact same number as Drexler, where it's under recommended bidder.
I think you caught the director of finance with a copy and paste there, Councillor Yates.
Oh,
All right.
And you
Let it
caught
go.
me because I review the reports before they go on the agenda. So you caught me too.
All
Yep,
right.
no,
All
I
right.
see what you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
my mistake. Sorry, Dan.
No problem. I thought maybe that was maybe the issue, but
The numbers are right, but certainly the recommended bidder is a mistake.
thank you.
The recommendation that I read does specify Drexler Construction, so I think we're on safe ground there.
Okay.
It's just a typo in the report.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this one? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 6C. And this is in regard to the correspondence from the Ministry of Transportation. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received the correspondence dated April 20th, 2022 from Jeffrey Gladdy, Director, West Operations, Ministry of Transportation, regarding the Township of Wellington North 2022-23 Connecting Links Program project submission. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. And anybody want to comment on this? It's me that pulled it out again, so if nobody else wants to do it, I'll go ahead. I just wanted to pull this out. I mean, this isn't the news we wanted to hear, that we're going to be able to proceed with Smith Street, but I thought it was really good to reflect on the success we've had with working with the Ministry of Transportation and the Connecting Links program. In the last few years, we've been successful in getting projects that funded Main Street South in Mount Forest. We're successful with funding to help us with the Rick Hopkins Bridge, although that wasn't directly the Connecting Links program. We were successful with the Queen Street West project, another large project, and of course the George Smith Street project in Arthur this past year. Since the reintroduction of the Connecting Links program, I'd say our batting average is pretty darn good. We've been pretty successful at working with MTO, and I would like to thank staff for their efforts in that regard, because as we see with Queen Street and the number of calls I'm sure we all get about Queen Street, our residents certainly recognize the importance of these arteries in our community, and we absolutely need the support of the Ministry of Transportation to make these happen. So I know that we'll keep applying, and I know that I keep visiting with the Minister of Transportation and talking about these things, and she's very gracious about it, and we've done really well. Just on a similar note, I was meeting with the Minister of Transportation again at a Good Roads conference on behalf of the Wellington County, and an item that came out of the county master plan, and that is around what population growth is going to do to Highway 6 and the needs of Highway 6 over the coming years and decades. And the Minister of Transportation agreed that they need to be at the table to discuss what solutions are going to be needed for Highway 6. And I think that's a great news story that they're going to be at the table to at least discuss what's needed for Highway 6 for the future as our community continues to grow. So, you know, while we're disappointed we didn't get this one, I think we keep trying, and we also should be very thankful for the support we've had, not only with the connecting links, but also the support we've had from MTO with regard to the Sobeys development at the north end of Mount Forest, and getting kind of traffic solution that we think is the best one is there for that as well. Other questions or comments? Okay.
I'm just going to say, Andy, sorry. Yeah, I would kind of just echo what you said. I think you can't win them all, but you got to keep trying. And yeah, we have been fortunate as a township to have the help from the MTO and the minister. And I think we just got to keep applying the pressure.
And I know lots of other communities haven't been as fortunate as we have. So, you know, if we look at all of our major connecting link assets, we're doing pretty well in terms of making sure that we have what we need to keep our community safe and traveling appropriately. Any other? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what you've said, Andy. I mean, it sometimes looks like we're not doing very good, but really over the last number of years, we've been very fortunate. So, yeah, I think you just need to keep applying, and hopefully it'll come through.
I'm sure it will. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I think that's the end of our items for consideration, isn't it, Karen? Okay, so we'll move on to notice of motion. Do we have any notice of motion this evening?
I have none, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, not seeing any, so we'll move on to community group meeting program report. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on there?
Nope, I'm good.
Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I can provide a report. I had a few meetings, I think, since our last council meeting, and the Arthur 150 meeting is meeting this evening. Just so you know, Faye called to remind me and asked me if I'd be there, but I had told her a couple of times that we had council, so I'm sure they'll get along just fine. The cultural roundtable, as you know, we had I don't like the word recruitment, but we had a new volunteer meeting, and the committee has identified and recommended a number of additions to our committee. So there'll be a report. Dale will be bringing a report to council regarding that. The Arthur BIA, we had a really good meeting, our last one. The next meeting will be a hybrid meeting. The Arthur BIA, we have had every single meeting during COVID. We have not had anything in person. And I think something, from my perspective anyway, is that we haven't had time to bond. We've had no real ability to bond. So this is going to be nice that some of us that are comfortable to come to the meeting will be able to, and those that need to stay home can stay home. So I'm really looking forward to the next meeting, and I think we all are. The Arthur Chamber meeting, it was canceled because the growth meeting was the same evening. And there wasn't a lot at the Mount Forest Chamber meeting. They are working on, as you know, they do a Mount Forest guide. I believe normally it comes out in the spring. They don't feel that they can get a good guide together in that amount of time, and looking to have a fall guide come out. So there's a summary.
Thanks, Lisa. Steve, I saw you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
No, I just thought I would add that we have another rec meeting coming up May 10th, and it will be at 6:30 p.m. and it is in conjunction with the Mount Forest Ad Hoc Advisory Committee for the Mount Forest Pool fundraising as well. So Just thought I would add that to the community report that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. That meeting is coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Any other community group reports? Dan, go ahead.
Just a question to Steve. Steve, is that going to be a virtual meeting still?
Yes, sorry, I should have said that, Dan. Yeah, it is virtual. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Lisa?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Councillor McCabe did ask about the Arthur 150 and what it could do, and Faye says she's happy to put you to work, Steve.
Careful what you ask for, I guess. No, happy to do that. I think it's going to be great, and yep. I'd love to help out, of course.
Any others? So I have a couple that I'd like to report on, and I've already kind of alluded to at least one of them. Last week I had Wednesday evening had the opportunity to go and have an in-person meeting with the invitation of the Mount Forest Lions Club. It was kind of nice to get out and start doing these things in person again, and I think everybody kind of agreed that that's certainly a nice change from the past couple of years. I spoke mostly about the amount of growth and development and housing needs in our community coming up, and we had some really good discussion, some really good questions from the Lions. One that popped up that I wasn't expecting, but it was really nice to see, was one of the Lions was asking about additional residential units, how we've been more permissive with our zoning bylaw around that. I don't think that based on the conversation and the question, I don't think that's widely known by the public, that that's a possibility in our community. So I think there's something that we can continue to promote a little bit around that. And I know that there certainly was a recognition from the group that rental housing is still a huge need in our community. There was other assorted questions too about things like, as we grow, what's going to be needed from parks and, playgrounds type of thing. The Mount Forest Lions certainly have been a major contributor to parks and playgrounds in Mount Forest. And I think they were kind of with an eye to the future thinking about that. And I did bring up the pool project with the Mount Forest Lions, because I know how important that project that is to them, and we had a good discussion around that. I did have one question popped up from one Lion member when I had some one-on-one time after the meeting, and they asked me a question that I didn't really have a good answer to, but I thought it was a really good question, and that was, with this project going from an estimated $2 million to an estimated $5.5 million, what would it cost to fix the one we've got? Would that be more cost effective? And I thought that was a really great question that we probably need to explore a little bit to better understand what's the appropriate way to proceed with this project. I did encourage them to participate in the survey and make sure that we get the appropriate feedback to make a decision of this magnitude relative to this project. So all in all, it was great to be out and participating and getting some community feedback. Also, just would briefly highlight that I got invited to bring greetings to the Legion Auxiliary. We're having a zone meeting in Mount Forest, and it was it's good to see people out and socializing. They did have a little hiccup in that before I got there, the power had gone out for about 15 minutes, and they were worried about holding the meeting in the dark. But everybody had a good chuckle about that, as that didn't last very long. So again, it's great to be out and participating with some of that stuff. Steve?
Sorry, sorry, carry on. I'll wait till you're done. Sorry.
Oh, I think I'm done. So if you have questions, now's a good time.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Sorry, and I didn't mean to jump in. I think that's kind of an intriguing question to that the line member asked you, and it's kind of funny. It's something that you think of, but at the time when we were talking about the existing pool and building a new pool, the new pool was about 2 million, I think was the estimate, like a number of years ago. And so that seemed a little bit more, well, I wouldn't say easier to swallow, would be a little, the price was high, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And now as we're further down this road and we've just been speaking and thinking about the new pool, it begs the question, like, should we not maybe look like not stop altogether, but while we're looking at the new pool, get a report about what it would actually cost to bring the existing pool right up to standards, like, and no more of these band-aids from one year to the next. Something breaking down, then we kind of patch it and hopefully make sure it goes through for another year. I would be interested to see a kind of a cost analysis of what it would cost to bring the existing pool up to, AODA standards, up to 2022 building standards. Because I think if, the price of asphalt has kind of tied our hands this year for projects that we were actually able to afford because of the price increase of material. I think if there was a possibility to spend 2 million, I'm just throwing that number out there, to fix the existing pool and bring it up to standards, I would be very okay with doing that and saving 3.5 or 4 million, and spending that money elsewhere if we could bring the existing pool up to date. I don't know if that's feasible. I think it would be a worthwhile issue to look at, I think, as well. I know there's the plumbing, it's all underground at the Mount Forest pool, but if there was some way of doing a cost analysis, like what we have, repairing it to top notch, like, again, none of this Band-Aid stuff, versus a brand new pool that could be 5 to 6 million. And if we can put 2 million into the existing pool and have it go another 20, 30 years, like that ROI or that, the payout over those 25 years or 30 years, putting 2 million into it this year and having it go till, say, 2045 or 2050, I think that's money well spent.
Well, I mean, it's been a while since we talked about that, and we kind of discarded the idea of fixing the pool as not feasible. But certainly that was when we talked about replacement in the $2 million range. Maybe it's still not feasible. But
exactly, it might not be.
And I see Matt's popped up. Maybe he's got the answer for us right away. Go ahead, Matt.
I wish I did, Mayor Lennox. But staff could look at that. The facility is very limited, I think, as far as its rehabilitation availability, but certainly we can. I don't know if we went through the activity of sussing it out entirely, but I think the rec master plan in 2018 kind of did. But if that's something that a majority of council wants staff to look at, that's something that staff can do to just kind of suss out what that number would look like.
Steve, go ahead.
I think I like the idea of, Matt, of what you're saying about sussing it out and doing a cost analysis on it, because I mean, like 2018, the rec master plan, that's 4 years ago, and the price was going to be about 2 million for a new pool. Well, that's almost tripled. And I think it's our job to look after the public money. It's our money as a collective. And it's not trying to get by with an old pool and, you know, putting lipstick on a pig, but if we could really bring it back up to standards and have it as good as gold for the next 20 or 30 years, and not spend another 3 or 4 million more on a pool, on a new pool. I think, like, I mean, if I was doing a renovation on my house, I wouldn't tear down the whole house just to do the kitchen. I think it would be in our best interest as people who make decisions on how and where taxpayers' dollars go, to not press pause on the new pool, but really have a good look at what we have right now and what would it cost to bring it back up. And if there's a cost savings of even 1 million or 2, like I got to think that's worth it. Like, that goes a long way.
Yeah, I'm maybe not quite as enthusiastic as you, Steve, about fixing what we've got, but I think it might provide us with, you know, when we're going to taxpayers to ask them to pay for this pool, it might give us a good base to say, you know, we looked at it again and we don't think it's a good idea, and here's why.
Exactly. We got to have the answers to go ahead now that the price is almost doubled or almost tripled. I think we have to look at that.
I mean, I think a new pool is the best solution, but I do think that when we're going to go ask for that kind of money from our taxpayers, we got to be prepared to answer the question of, well, why not?
Exactly.
Matt, I saw your hand up there.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Lennox. I was just going to say that this activity will take time, though, too, I guess. That's something that council needs to give consideration to, as far as looking at what rehabbing our existing facility will be. Isn't a phone call, I don't think, but yeah, I think it takes a little bit of time.
Okay. Karen?
So I would suggest, if there's I think if there's going to be a cost involved with this, it should be a motion moved to direct staff to investigate, you know, whatever the feasibility of rehabilitating the existing pool. If we're going to do the cost analysis internally, then it could just be direction to staff.
Okay. Mike?
This is not, through you, Mayor Lennox, if we're going to go to this extent, it won't be something that will be done internally with staff. We're going to need to have engineers engaged, you know, to looking at the facility, and we're going to need to probably engage an architect to see what would have to happen from the accessibility standpoint in the current building code as well. So you know, the concept of, well, staff can come up with this, I don't think is going to work in this scenario. We're going to need to bring in some professionals, so there will be some dollars assigned to it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just suggesting that in terms of process, it's going to involve some outside consultants.
Okay. Sherry, go ahead.
So in terms of process, as Mike has alluded to, if we're going to spend dollars on engineering, and we just nicely got a conceptual design that's taken 2 years for us to get, and the aquatics committee has fundraising events planned and material already printed that says new pool, I'd just like to know where we're going with this.
Okay. I think
Because
it's up to this panel.
I think that this conversation is going to be very deflating to the dedicated volunteers that we have that are trying to raise dollars.
Okay. So to answer your question, Sherry, I think it's up to this panel to decide whether we think this is a way we want to go or not. And I understand exactly what you're saying with regard to the volunteers. You and if we don't want to go down this road, then that needs to be what this panel decides. Go ahead.
I sort of thought that rebuilding and looking at reconstructing the old point or the old pool was a moot point, and that's why this committee, the Aquatics Committee, was struck.
Steve?
Just say for argument sake, the feasibility report comes back and it's $2 million to build or rehabilitate the existing pool. I think there would be a great ability for the fundraising committee to still be obviously actively involved, because if we're rehabilitating it and bringing it up to AODA specs, something like the rock climbing wall, there's still a lot of amenities or add-ons that we could still obviously build into a new rehabilitation. I don't know if it's going to be worth it. I don't know. And I'm not trying to sound crass at all, but if we can save $1 million or even even 500,000 and rehabilitate maybe $1 million, I would say, or $2 million, I think that would be something. Yes, it'd be a little deflating for the fundraising team, but I think it's still something that we could still fundraise for. Like regardless, I think it would still be a committee that we would need.
Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that Councillor McCabe's missing the point, and that is the fact that we have been promoting that we are building a new pool, and we have a fundraiser that is starting at the end of May that says we are building a new pool. So I would suggest, in my opinion, we need to get on with it. If we're going to go back and we're going to revisit the real rehabilitation, let's get on with the vote, and then we can figure out where we go from here.
Okay. Steve?
Oh, I understand the point, but I think the point of saving money, I think is fairly important as well. And I want that point to be crystal clear. It might not be if there's a feasibility and it says, no, it's going to cost $4 million to bring it up. Then okay, then it's a moot point and we go on. But I think it's worthwhile looking at.
Okay. Dan, go ahead.
Unfortunately, this conversation is about 4 years too late. You know, we all want to save the money. I mean, we're all, you know, I mean, that's our job and our role here. But yeah, I just think that this conversation is just too late. I think there's been too much work and too much effort put into moving ahead to turn back, unfortunately.
Okay. Any other, Karen?
So this item really isn't an item on the agenda. This has been generated just through an update on a committee.
Right.
I would suggest that maybe it be brought forward as a notice of motion, or that you direct staff to bring this up as unfinished business at the next meeting, and then nobody's pushed into a decision tonight, and then the public has notice that this is going to appear on an agenda. And that's just a suggestion.
Okay. So I agree. We shouldn't be making any decision on this. It's just an update, like our clerk reminded us of. I think no matter what we do need to be prepared to answer that question that was posed to me. Maybe that's my fault. I was maybe a little bit unprepared to answer that question because the question was posed to me relative to the scale and scope of the project that made it. And I responded that, you know, we had kind of discarded that because we felt that a new pool was the right thing to do because fixing the old was too costly and too hard to get the result that we need for our community. And I still believe that's the case. But we do need to be prepared because we will have other residents who will ask the question too. And we need to be clear about what it is that we believe, why we're proceeding with what we are, because I'm sure that question will come back again. So certainly, I think this is something we need to carry forward. I don't see a consensus here around this issue. So I think maybe maybe we should bring this topic up at our next meeting, which is what, the 5th of March? Is that right, Karen?
I think
Or
it's the
May, I mean.
9th.
Hey,
The
9th of
9th,
May,
isn't
sorry.
it?
Yeah, I got
Sorry,
the
not
date wrong.
March, not March.
Yeah, I know, I got it wrong on both counts. But I do think we do need some clarity about
Sure.
how we're going to proceed with this project and how we're going to finance it. So maybe we can get some staff support around how we can finance it as well, around, just so that we can be really clear, because we're moving down the path towards getting this project ready. We're doing some public consultation, which is absolutely the right thing to do. We need to make sure we're complete and thorough with our consultation, so that when we're asking the public to pay for this, that they understand what it is they're getting and that they're on board with it. So what will be the procedure to, I mean, we're already past notice of motion this evening. Karen, how would we initiate getting this on the agenda for a future meeting?
So the long way to do it is wait for the next meeting and bring a notice of motion and then deal with it at the next meeting. But there is some urgency around it. So perhaps you could take a vote asking for this to be brought up at the next meeting. A majority vote would rule on that, and that it be brought up at the next meeting for further discussion. And the discussion would be to direct staff to investigate the feasibility of rehabilitating the existing pool.
Okay. Is council okay with that approach? I'm seeing a nod from Lisa. I don't know what happened to Steve. Sherry and Dan, are you okay with that approach?
So I think,
No,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Sherry.
no, I'm not, because I thought we were past this. I honestly thought we were past this in 2018 when we started these discussions.
So procedurally, I think someone needs to move and second a motion and then have a
Okay.
majority vote that this, that staff oh my gosh, I just said that this issue be brought up at the next meeting of council to direct staff to investigate the feasibility, not staff, to have staff, investigate the feasibility, knowing that we're going to hire experts to do it on the rehabilitation of the existing pool. Mike, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, we need a motion basically to bring this item back for discussion. And yeah, there's no
And
way we're going to
decision.
have a feasibility report on the next meeting. Basically, we're having a vote as to whether or not we're going to actually discuss it and make a decision on that. And
Absolutely, yeah.
so I think we need someone to make that motion if that's the intent, and see if there's a seconder, and then have a vote.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I'll put that motion in play, or I'll move that motion. I know it's 4 years down the road, but the costs have increased so much that I think it's worth a second look, and it may come back as not feasible at all. And I'm very okay with that, but I think it is worth a look. So I'll put that motion, I'll move that motion.
So before we get to a seconder, again, as Mike said, the motion is to bring this item back to the next meeting of council for a decision as to whether there will be a feasibility study.
Yeah.
on
Okay.
rehabilitating the existing pool.
So this will appear on, if supported by a majority vote of council, this will appear as unfinished business on the next agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just so we're all clear.
Yeah, thank you for that. Do we have a seconder for that? Lisa? Okay,
Yeah, I'm
so
just
then,
seconding it.
so we've got a seconder, so we have a vote. Do we have any further discussion on this? Yeah, in terms of the vote on this, I would like to proceed with the new pool, but I do think we need to have a what's the word I'm looking for?
Rationale?
Yes, certainly thank you for that, a rationale of why we're not proceeding with it. So I think from that perspective, I think we need to be prepared to discuss that and make sure that we're all on the same page as to why we're proceeding with a new pool and what that's going to look like. Because inevitably we're going to get asked that question. And I think we need to make sure that we're clear about why we're proceeding without fully investigating it, which is certainly our prerogative, and that's certainly the direction we've been taking. So whatever comes out of that discussion, I hope that it is that we all are on the same page as to why this is what we're doing. So for that reason, I'm going to support this, that we bring it back to the next council meeting and get this cleared up so that we can proceed to the next step. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll revisit this again at our next meeting. I would ask that you come prepared to discuss this at some length, and sorry to spring it on you at the last minute like that. Okay, I don't think I have anything else to report from my community group meeting. Anybody have any other questions or anything they'd like to report on? Okay, then we'll move on to bylaws. We have a recommendation here that bylaw number 46-22 and 47-22 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. Any discussion on those bylaws? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Our cultural moment. Excuse me. So our cultural moment for April 25th celebrates our volunteers. Wellington North is blessed to have such a tremendous group of volunteers in our community, and it is important that we take the opportunity to thank and celebrate them for everything they do to help make Wellington North a great place to live, work, and raise a family. On behalf of council and staff, we invite all volunteers in our community to join us on Thursday, May 5th, 2022 for our second annual Volunteer Appreciation Dinner. The celebration will be a drop-in event held between 5 and 7 p.m. at the Arthur and Area Community Center, 158 Domville Street in Arthur. The event will include a catered meal, cake cutting, and mayor's welcome at 5:30. This celebration will fall 1 week after the 2022 National Volunteer Week. The 2022 theme is Volunteering is Empathy in Action and affirms the strong connection between volunteerism and empathy. This profoundly human connection is at the heart of healthier individuals and stronger communities. Empathy is a quality that can help people relate to others and build awareness around different experiences. It connects people in ideas and actions and helps create bonds forged in common goals and aspirations. Volunteers are at the heart of Wellington North, and we look forward to recognizing and celebrating volunteerism in our community. We urge everyone to recognize the crucial role played by volunteers in our community, and we hope you can come out and join us on May 5th. Although the registration deadline is passed, we can still accommodate last-minute requests. Please email volunteer@wellington-north.com. That was submitted by the Cultural Roundtable. Thank you to them for that. And next we have a closed meeting session, but before we do that, I'll just again draw your attention to meetings and notices and announcements. National Volunteer Week is this week, April 24th to 30th. The Mount Forest Aquatics Ad Hoc Advisory Committee has a meeting scheduled here for May 3rd, but I believe that's going to be a joint meeting with the Rec Parks and Leisure on May 10th. Is that correct?
Yes, at 6:30 virtually.
Okay. The appreciation, Wellington North Volunteer Appreciation is May the 5th. Our next council meeting is Monday, May the 9th. And of course, the Rec Parks and Leisure Committee meeting I alluded to is Tuesday, the May the 10th. At what time did you say, Steve? 6:30?
Yes.
It's in the agenda at 4, so. Okay, so move into a closed session. Here we have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 8:36 p.m. that is closed to the public under subsection 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 specifically for personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And this is to deal with report HR 2022-002 being a report on the proposal regarding the Chief Administrative Officer position. And we'll also review the closed minutes from April the 11th. So could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that we're enclosed.